recording too.
Hello,
Hello.
this is Mark Cousins. I'm Peter Knox. This is 15 Minutes of Shame, and you're welcome to it. Good health, Mark.
Why is it called 15 Minutes of Shame?
Well, it just sort of came into my head, and I thought that'll do.
Yeah.
So I need to start off by, as I said to you the other day when we were chatting, thank you for Movie Drome, because that got me, and I've seen people saying this to you on Twitter before, it's got so many people into film, cool films, cult films, films that people would never otherwise have seen. And I guess it's about, 25 years ago or something?
Yeah.
And people are still talking about it and loving it. So thanks for that.
Thank you. It's quite weird. I was quite young when I did that, but
Yeah.
thanks.
How old were you? About 30 or something?
Yeah. 34.
And you still do, you do a kind of long form version of that, I would say, with your story of film and.
No, I don't think so. Because Movie Drome was just me on camera talking.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't the filmmaker.
Yeah.
But I was never comfortable with that. So things like the story of film and that other stuff, that's me behind the camera as the filmmaker.
Yeah.
So it's it feels the opposite to me in some ways.
Okay.
Obviously, I'm still talking about movies, but it's I'm an image maker really, and I'm quite shy on camera, even this one to be honest. And so so Movie Drome was a sort of detour for me.
But if it's similar in the way that if anyone's wanting your film recommendations, they can go on there and see what you're.
Again, no,
No,
I don't think so. No, I'm not a film critic. Never have been a film critic.
You're almost the opposite of a film
yeah,
critic.
yeah.
You're a film champion.
Well, I'm a filmmaker. It's the maker. That's the central thing. I make it like before you arrived today for 8 hours. I was editing. And this is my edit suite, and this is where I'm happier. So it's not really about championing. It's just about making stuff. My subject is often movies, but sometimes, quite often not as well.
Yeah, but you do celebrate films. You always see the good in them. In the films
yes.
you're talking about.
Well, it's not that I'm talking. Sorry. It's yes, I do. A lot of my films are love letters to something, whether it's movies or other things. So definitely there's a celebratory. Totally agree. But it's not about the content for me. It's about the filmmaking for me.
The most recent things of yours I've seen were the story of Luke. Oh
yes,
I watched that last night. Set in here.
Set in this flat,
in this very space.
Yeah.
And that was a bit of a lockdown project, I guess.
Yeah.
It was really nice. It's a sort of intimate film. There's a lot of Edinburgh in it.
A lot of Edinburgh in it.
Really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
Did you just it sort of brought on because you were getting your cataract operation?
That's right. This eye was going fuzzy, and I was sort of rubbing the lens of my glasses, thinking, "What's wrong?" And then I realized it wasn't the glasses; it's the lenses. And so, I had written a book on that subject, on looking, and the history of looking, and then I thought, the filmmaker in me thought, right, if I'm getting a cataract, why don't we turn that into a movie? And so in the hospital we filmed my eye being scraped out and putting a new lens in and all that. You saw that, and so it was a nice way of adding a bit of jeopardy, a bit of gore to a project which was trying to say the point that you made earlier, that it's about celebrating looking. And I think for me, always looking has kept me, looking outside these windows of the people going by in the buses and everyday life has always kept me sane and it's always been closely related to mental health things. For example, if you're bored, if you're depressed, if you're caught up in your own thoughts, just go out and look, and you'll see something totally alive.
And has it changed your life not having to wear specs anymore?
Yeah. It's great. I don't even wear sunglasses even when it's hot.
Oh really?
I don't want to have anything between me and the world.
You can't.
I know, but nor do I walking down the street. I don't wear earbuds or anything. And now roughly half the people on the street are wearing earbuds.
Yeah.
But as a filmmaker, I want to see and hear everything. I don't want to screen the world out. The world is far too interesting, I think, to screen out.
And people wear them while they're cycling as well, which I don't think is a
Dangerous
good
as hell.
idea. Yeah.
It's dangerous as hell. How do you hear if somebody's beeping their horn behind you? I think no.
And you're a cyclist. I've seen you cycling about
Yes,
Edinburgh
I am. Yeah.
on a number of occasions. And do you think that's more dangerous than some of the war zones you've been to? Do you feel quite comfortable?
There was a time cycling down Leith Walk, you were taking your life into your own hands because of the potholes and the.
You know, now there's a cycle path people just step onto.
I know. Oh, yeah. Then I mean, it's dangerous. It's not ideal. That.
Yeah.
But I like cycling. I remember seeing David Byrne cycling, the music. From Talking Heads, seeing him cycling up Leith Walk once. Because he's an Edinburgh boy in some ways, and so you see him occasionally. I remember sitting down in the Cameo cinema in Tollcross once, waiting for a movie, and the person who sat next to me was David Byrne.
Wow. Yeah, he's from Dumbarton originally, isn't he?
Right.
Canada. I went to see him a few years ago at the Hydro. He was doing a show, and there was a big dance troupe with him.
Oh yes.
Going through the whole concert, and it was absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
It was a really good thing. And did you say hello to him when he sat down, or did you just not?
I'm quite a shy person. I'm an introvert basically, and I'm really interested in introversion. I think that a lot of filmmakers are introverts, which means that you're not in the middle of everything.
Yeah.
You're on the sidelines observing and watching stuff, and I therefore, if I see somebody like that, I, don't say anything, But when you said hello to me yesterday, I was delighted, because I was downtown, I was on my own, and you said a nice thing, Mark, would you like a drink, and you were very friendly and warm, and that's I think that we're all looking for connection, and I think lots of people's lives, they feel very siloed and disconnected, and if we live in a small enough city where we recognize other people, why not celebrate that in a way?
See, I was on my way home and I thought he'd probably gone into that quiet old man's pub to get away from people being pestered by people that are going to recognize him, so...
Not at all.
No.
I just went in there because I'd been working all day. I'd just seen a movie and my brain was sort of dead in a way. My brain, because I work from 6 a.m, by about 4 p.m, my brain says, no, I'm sorry, I'm not doing anything anymore. I need an escape. Or so, it's a glass of wine or read a book or something like that.
Perfect. Yeah. I've almost bumped into you a few times before. We were both seeing Men, the Alex Garland film.
Oh yes, yeah.
There's been a few times I've thought about saying hello, but I don't like to pester people. But in the pub, it seemed like you were by yourself.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah.
And you were just down at we were at the Omni Centre. Like, it doesn't need to be the art house or the film house. You'll just go where the film is.
Oh, absolutely. One of the things for me, Peter, the whole way has been totally non-snobby about cinema, So when I made The Story of Film, the very first scene in the whole of The Story of Film is Saving Private Ryan, to show this isn't like a highbrow take on cinema, Cinema itself is the art form of the people in a way, It's high-low country, it's high and low, and you need to be blind to those categories. So I love the View Omni. It's the cinema that I go to most, probably. The screens are great, the sound is great, the tech is really good in there. It's affordable, cheap at $7.99. I mean, I call cinema the affordable sublime, and it really is. If you're in London, it's different. You add a tenner onto that, it's $17.99 before you can go.
Everyman, the Scotsman, they're trying to put tickets.
So I think that it's really important to keep connected to the origins of cinema. That it was really for a whole class of people who couldn't afford to go to the opera or who could afford to go to other stuff, and I consider myself in that class. Even though I've got a bit of money now, but I come from a very working class background, and I've always adored the accessibility of cinema.
Working class background, is it Belfast?
Belfast.
What was the movie scene like in Belfast in the 80s? Were people making films?
Well, not really, well, because we still had the Troubles, so it was, people didn't go out as much, it was like a sort of like a lockdown that we had for 30 years sort of thing, So there were certain, like Neil Jordan made a film called Angel starring Stephen Ray, and for us, it was like Gregory's Girl in Scotland.
Right. Okay.
You remember when Gregory's Girl in Scotland came along? It was like, oh my God, there's somebody like us on screen. You know, up there where Robert De Niro should be.
Yeah.
There's a Gregory and he's covering his nipples. You know, and you remember? And there's a locker room and all that. And so that moment of that sense, I belong up there, or at least it's possible for me to be up there in that magic rectangle. You know, what Gregory did here, this film Angel that I just mentioned did for Northern Ireland, and it sort of, Stephen Ray had kind of my accent, and he was working class, and the whole series of things meant, oh my goodness, it's possible. I certainly didn't think that I would ever become a filmmaker. You know, I just thought I'd be a film fan for the rest of my life, which is great. I would have been happy being, you know, other things. I was a gardener and a furniture remover and a security guard and all of that, as long as I had cinema to hold my hand, as long as I had cinema to hold my hand, you know, and I feel that's what it does to us. You know, it says, okay, whatever happens, I'm here.
Yeah.
As a sounding board. You know, so
I heard that you don't rewatch films a lot because there's new films you'd rather see than.
Yes, exactly.
Is there? Do you know what film you think you might have seen the most?
I do. It's a Billy Wilder's film, The Apartment.
Oh, okay.
Starring Shirley MacLaine and Jack Lemmon, and I think, what to my absolute delight, I got to know Jack Lemmon.
Yeah.
And when
I remember that. Yeah.
And when Faber and Faber published the screenplay of it, they asked a certain person to write the introduction to the screenplay. So it was one of the first significant pieces of writing I did. What was that? Oh no, 98. No, it wasn't. It was. But anyway, so that film. I love that film just because it's a great film.
Yeah.
But it's also, you know, about the bittersweet aspect of not only love but of life in general. You know, and once you realize as you grow up that life is bittersweet, then a film like The Apartment becomes treasurable. So I have gone back to that a number of times. But if I never see that film again in my life, I'm fine because it's in there forever.
You've seen it, like Stevie Wonder. It was Ray Charles, sorry. Talking about having seen his mum.
Yes, in the beginning of the story. Yeah. You don't need to see things. I don't need to see things. Like, if I never go to London again, I don't mind. You know, if I never go, I just want new things. You know, I want new experiences, visual experiences, emotional experiences. Obviously, I don't want to dump my friends and get a new set. But in terms of visual things, always for me, I want something. I want to feel rejuvenated, reborn in a way. You know? And would you like some more of this wine?
Yeah, I'll take a wee top up. It's a Primitivo from Italy via Aldi. $6.54 a bottle.
So that's my upper limit.
It's really nice, isn't it?
It's very nice.
Yeah. You're just back from Poland.
Yes.
What were you up to there?
A retrospective. I'm at the advanced age where
you just had a big birthday, I saw.
60, yeah. So I'm at the advanced age where you get retrospectives, you know, and people say, oh, can you do this? And it's really nice because filmmakers really struggle to get audiences, especially people who work on the lower budget end of the spectrum. So the fact that, you know, they say, can we show 4 or 5 of your films and different cities around Poland, is, you know, it's great. You know, I personally don't love traveling, but I'm honored that they want to show stuff, you know, and it is kind of amazing, I have to say, that cinema is such a global language. Then if I show up in Rio de Janeiro or Warsaw or like Cairo or somewhere like that, there are people who have seen a lot of my movies, and I mean, I'm always astonished by that, you know, that the films travel. And what I'm particularly interested in is those more totalitarian countries like Iran, where you can't show a lot of stuff over ground. There's the black market. Film, you know, young people in Iran, there's so many film fans, and they love cinema, and I think, wow. So I'm an optimist about this kind of thing. People say, oh, cinema's dying, it's going down the toilet, the best days are over, the golden age is past. I just meet loads of people cinema like you.
Yeah.
You know, and
It's just changing, surely, because now people, it's really, there's less barriers to making a film. Like if you set your heart on it, you can do it. I say you might, maybe no one will see it, but you can do that. And do you think there's quite often, there's so many streaming services and things, but quite often I'll get an urge to see a film and have a wee look about for it, and it's just not possible to see it anywhere. So there must be so many amazing films just not being seen, sitting somewhere.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you think
that's true?
That's
You know,
maybe a
and that's very
problem?
yeah.
That's
it
for
is.
me if I want to
It
watch
is a
them.
problem. It is a problem, but you can't watch everything. You know, there
No.
are. You know, there's some. I can't. The last time I looked, there's something like 500,000 films made each year.
Yeah.
You know, so like we're going to see a zillionth of that, right? But I think the good thing is something like YouTube is the biggest cinematheque in the world.
Yeah.
Now, you know, and so people were resistant to it, and obviously a lot of films on YouTube are low resolution or something. But whole film industries, like the Soviet film industry, decided to put like nearly everything that was made on YouTube.
Right.
And I sit here in this room every day. You know, I've made at least 20 feature-length films in this room.
Yeah.
And I sit in this room every day, like exploring YouTube and finding stuff that maybe only 10 people have watched, but that is really great. And so I think YouTube is a kind of multiverse. It's a sort of panopticon. It's a kind of Aladdin's cave, and the question is just what do you look for?
Yeah.
You know, whatever you're most interested in. There's going to be something there for you to find. Not only YouTube, but it's sort of central to this, you know, and that kind of idea of the open access and the generous sense of what film history is. That's what we want to get to. So if people watching this and they're in, you know, on the west of Mull, or if they're in, you know, a working class environment where they're not exposed, there's nobody around them saying try this or try that, they can find it.
Yeah. I watched The Dead Zone a few weeks
Oh,
ago, Christopher Walken,
yeah.
and I hadn't seen that before. I've never really heard of it, and it was so good. I just thought, how can I not know about this film? It's absolutely amazing.
So good. Well, I used to have a nightmare that I would run out of films to see.
Yeah.
And run out of cities to visit,
Right.
but that ain't gonna happen.
No.
You know, the great films are stacking up.
Yeah.
So there are more and more and more. So no matter how long we live, there's always going to be loads of cinema to nourish us and excite us.
So yeah, I watched the Story of Looking.
Yeah.
It was available on Amazon for a few pounds, so I would recommend people to watch that. And up there, they've also got your Alfred Hitchcock film, which I had the pleasure of seeing in the cinema, and there was a Q&A afterwards. Could you just talk about that a little bit? Discuss what that is?
You know, I didn't want to make a film about Alfred Hitchcock because there's so much. If you see it up there on that shelf, there are like quite a few Hitchcock books, and there are like loads of books about Hitchcock and films about Hitchcock. And I just thought, you know, I have nothing new to say. And then I thought maybe I have. Maybe I can imagine him coming back from the dead. So I just sat and wrote I sat and watched all his films in order, and I took notes in this particular book here, and so that's film by film, and just took notes about what I thought was interesting. What could I say something new about Hitch? You know, not that everybody else has said, like suspense and everything like that. And once I had this, I thought, I think there might be a film in here. So I did it and worked with the brilliant voice artist, Alistair McGowan.
Yeah, he's really
Isn't he brilliant?
Yeah.
I mean, it's totally believable. And he phoned, I got a phone call, a voice message, and it said, hello, this is Mr. Alfred Hitchcock here. And I thought, oh my God. And I phoned my producer and said, we don't need to search anymore. We've got our actor.
Yeah. So that's on Amazon, so people should definitely watch that too. There's other things out there, but at the Q&A, someone asked what I thought was a really good question. They asked you what sort of films you thought Hitchcock would be making now if he was still alive. And do you remember what you said?
No.
You said you thought he'd be making TikToks.
Oh yes, yes. I think certainly he'd be very interested in TikTok. You know, because they're funny, they're short, you know, the point of view in a TikTok is really important, and all that stuff where you put the hand on the camera and then you cut away. You know, definitely he'd be very interested in TikTok. You know, definitely, of course, he would be very interested in Bong Joon Ho, the Korean movies that are happening. Hitchcock really, you know, understood cinema, so he'd be doing something funky.
Yeah. And his accent is actually really strange, Alfred Hitchcock, especially after he'd lived in America for a few years, isn't it? He's got a bit of all sorts going on in there.
So he's in East London, but then, you know, other things, you know, it's and that kind of, he was a comedian. Basically, he always tried to be funny, Hitchcock, didn't he? You know, so that's why he had that very deep voice, and he tried to be very sardonic. And you know, it's great. It was great being in the Hitchcock world for a while, you know, because it's a really nice place. The films are so good. I enjoyed being there.
Yeah, and you were in touch with his family, and is that right?
Well, you know, to make a film about Hitchcock, you don't need any permissions from his family, you know. But when it was publicized that I was doing it, the lawyer of the Hitchcock estate, who's also the lawyer of the Orson Welles estate, contacted me. And because I'd made a film about Orson Welles, I knew this guy.
You're part of the family, really,
a bit of family, yeah. And then, so I had done, I'm sure you've seen these before, but these are the...
Oh, no way!
The boots of
Orson's massive boots.
You can touch them if you want. They're a bit dusty. Everything's dusty in here.
I'm a big boot lover, so this is wow. They've got I thought they'd have a leather sole. They've got a rubber sole on there.
Yeah, and inside one of them
there where he's kicked something.
Oh, maybe I did that.
That wasn't you.
And this, and then inside this. Because you know he was flat-footed, Orson Welles.
Okay.
And the reason he couldn't fight in World War II, he really wanted to, but the reason he couldn't was he was flat-footed. Apparently that excluded you from fighting in World War II. So anyway, these are the boots of Orson Welles. So yes, I'd done this film about Orson Welles and had a good time going into that world. And then... There we go. So these are the socks of Orson Welles. That's unbelievable. So it was the same lawyer, and the lawyer said, you know, that that Hitchcock's granddaughters heard that I was doing this, and they were interested in it, you know. Yeah. And of course, I could have tried to sort of. It's scary that, you know, because if they had hated the film, they could have gone public and said this doesn't represent our grandfather at all, you know. But I thought I'll just send them a rough cut, and I did, and then I heard back that they rather liked it.
Yeah, well, why wouldn't they? It's very respectful and very, very nice. I always go to these Q&As if there's something interesting going on, but there's always some person that's got a question that isn't a question, it's a statement, and it takes them about 3.5 minutes to ask it, and then the person who's got to answer it doesn't really know what to say, so you've just got to find something. Is that quite difficult or horrible?
Well, you know, I'm not. Fun? Some people who go to these Q&As are quite theoretical people, you know, and I'm not that person, you know, and so sometimes you do get things, especially if they're not speaking in English, so I'm being translated in my ear, and the translator doesn't, you know, it's really complicated. You get a lot of that. And you know, the worst thing to do is humiliate somebody in the audience. You know, I could easily say, sorry, I have no idea what you're talking about.
What you on about, loser?
But what you try to do is say, well, I didn't fully understand your question, but from what I did get, I think this is, you know, because when you're in the front of an audience, you're in a position of power. And obviously people do, shall we say, sometimes want to, you know, ventilate them or thing, but it is slightly tricky that because like in Poland recently the Q&As were 40 minutes and the film's only 80 minutes or something, so it's like half as long as the film, so I'm never comfortable in those situations, but I know that I passionately believe in the film and whatever it's trying to say or the ideas or whatever, so I'll give it a go, whatever it is.
The most recent one I was at was Mark Webber, the guitarist in Pulp.
Oh yes.
Had an amazing book and had a Q&A. He's a big film person.
Oh yes.
So I thought, right, I'll just keep it concise. I had a question, so I managed to get it out. But I think that was the first time I've asked a question at a
Q&A. Your question?
Well, he was a fan of the band before he was in the band, so I was just wondering if that made him feel he was a bit more impartial about their output.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
And he said he did feel that way for a little while, but it wore off once he'd been in the band for a while, which is sort of probably the obvious answer, I suppose.
Sure.
But yeah, it's quite nerve-wracking
to ask a question.
Yeah.
I always say, because I always talk about shyness, which is, you know, a key thing, I think, and, you know, I always say, like, I feel too shy to ask questions, you know? So it is hard, you know, and sometimes you get the extroverts who like the sound of their own voice, and but it is nerve-wracking.
So what's your next, how many projects are you working on at the moment? Because I get the idea you've got a lot generally going on.
Usually 2 or 3 at a time, or maybe more than that, to be honest.
But you'll be brewing up.
Yeah, because it's, you know, I've never suffered from lack of ideas, to be honest, you know, and so it's more, the problem usually for me is just, you know, not working too hard, you know, not burning yourself out, you know, so the bigger thing I'm doing at the moment is this 4-year project, which is just coming to an end, which is about a history of documentary. And then the next one, which I can't wait to get onto, is an opera, not a film, but an opera.
Wow.
And it's about a bath, because I love baths. And I was sitting on some EasyJet flight in 36F, and my legs, I've got quite long legs, and they were all sort of, you know, crushed up.
Your best feature.
And I was just dreaming of being in a bath. And I thought, I could make an opera and a film that starts in row 36F, dreaming about being in a bath, and then see where that goes. So that's the one I can't wait to get onto.
So that's happening.
Well, you never know. I mean, if I never, you know, in the film industry, people talk about getting the green light for something, you know, and go through and doing through development. I never do that, because you can spend your whole life waiting for something. So it'll happen. I've already started. No funding, not a penny of funding, but.
I mean, you're pretty DIY generally, aren't you?
Yeah, and I work with great collaborators, you know, and eventually, if you keep going, eventually, you're not saying this film might happen. You're saying to funders, it's already happening. Would you like to be part of that? You know? Okay. So that's in the Bath project. It's already happening. Yeah. In my imagination.
And how long's your documentary about documentaries?
It's 16 hours. I'll show you here's the plan of it here. This is what it looks like in my head.
Sorry, Arson. Right, okay.
That's it. So it goes from the beginning of cinema to the present day, and then down the different countries.
Okay.
But I always have these big sheets of paper, so that's for this one, and I've worked all my way through this, and I'm now here in the story, so I just have to edit that bit.
Right. It's amazing the links you find in things. That when you say it and talk about it, it seems so obvious, but you know, I wouldn't have spotted, and I guess a lot of people wouldn't. Do these things, is it just obvious to you, these things?
Yes, sort of. You know, I think my brain is slightly unusual. I don't think I've got synesthesia, but over the years I've realized.
What's synesthesia?
It's where, you know, some people, if musicians often have it, so if they hear a note, they can see a color.
Oh yeah,
you know, that kind of thing. You know, so I don't think I have that, but I've certainly got something unusual going on where I can immediately see a connection.
Yeah.
You know, so that film that I made, which was called Story of Film: A New Generation, which was the opening film at the Cannes Film Festival one year. It starts with a clip of Joker, and then it cuts to Frozen. Yeah. 2 extremely different films. You know, Joker very adult and serious and about fascism, and Frozen, a kids movie. You know, and yet there's a connection.
You're saying there's the
There,
same
and
thing.
there really
yeah.
is a connection, you know. So I'm not bad at that, I think, and
yeah, you're great
and
at that.
you know, you have to work with what you've got.
Mhm.
What you know, whatever we know more about brain chemistry now, don't we?
Mhm.
And so we work with what we've got.
And then you get into Deadpool and that, and so yeah,
Yes,
you're
go
not
Deadpool.
afraid to go anywhere. Like you say, it's not necessarily.
It's not snobby, you know. It's the
snobby or
opposite of
highbrow.
snobby, you know. Often some of the best. I mean, I really love the Minecraft movie.
Right. Okay. I've not
it?
seen it. No, not yet.
And I went on social media saying I'm going to watch the Minecraft movie, and people said, "Don't go; it'll rot your brain." And see that snobby attitude, you know. There's you know, that's a danger. There's such a danger in that, and it's so funny and it's so good.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe I'll go. I'll take my son. I think he might like that. But I'm a bit funny with Jack Black. I don't always get on.
Right.
I mean, I love School of Rock. That's
Yes.
amazing. But some of the things.
He's too much, is he, for you?
Just a bit much for me. Yeah.
But if you know, that's a key thing. I think, you know, how high do you go? How far over the top do you go when you're making a film? You know, and some films really need it, and this film, you know, would have failed if it was too polite or too contained. And so his wild energy really helps, you know. And it really helps.
It's been a big hit, hasn't it? So it must have something going for it.
And we have to be grateful for these big tentpole movies that they call it, because they, you know, they've made lots of money for cinemas, and
I think I've drank most of that bottle.
No, I don't think you have. A film like Minecraft has made loads of movies for cinemas all around the world, including here in Edinburgh, you know. So even if we don't like the film, we have to be grateful to it that it got loads of people into the pictures.
Yeah.
And they bought loads of popcorn and they had a great time. Like, I mean, the audience loves it. So that's great in itself. But it also keeps the doors open of the cinemas.
Yeah.
And that's unbelievably important.
Speaking of keeping doors open, the film house is going to reopen, I think
Yes.
you were saying.
Yes.
I don't know if you know anyone that's got a bit of influence in there, but I think maybe one of the reasons it shut in the first place, I don't actually know the reasons, but they never sold popcorn.
I know.
And a cinema that doesn't, my wife wouldn't go because she loves popcorn with her film. So maybe you should think about having popcorn.
Well, you know, here we get into issues of social class. There are some people in Edinburgh who, and I think they basically live in places like, dare I say, the Newtown, Morningside, and Brunsfield, etc., who are lovely people, but they don't want to go to a cinema that sells popcorn. But I love going to cinema that sells popcorn, but they want to feel as if they're having a more quality experience, you know, none of which I agree with, but that's, I think, why Filmhouse went down that route. I personally think it's a mistake. That's only my opinion, you know. And also, popcorn's pure profit because it costs like zero.
It's less than peanuts, isn't it?
I know. So who knows, you know. But we live in a city which is quite got a lot of social class issues. And that might be one of them.
I didn't go as much as I should, but I did go just before it shut. And then the next week it shut. I went to see How They Run.
Oh, yes.
Based on an Agatha Christie, based on the Mousetrap, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
And the film had just came out. The cinema was packed. I think so. It was all the people that were really keen to see it.
Yeah.
And the atmosphere was fantastic, and it's such a beautiful place. My wife was with me. She couldn't get popcorn, but she was kind of okay with it because I really wanted to see the film.
She could overcome her need for popcorn.
Sneak some in.
But you know, Filmhouse, you know, think of the history of that place. I remember, you know, spending time with Scorsese there and Bertolucci and all the great filmmakers, you know, and Steve Martin, all the people who went through that door. You know, I once proposed that there should be a thing above the door just listing all the names who've come through that door.
Yeah,
some of the
that's
greatest
a great idea.
people in cinema, just to remind the audience, like, what a sort of brilliant place, you know, people flocked there, you know, for decades, you know, and so that would be nice to be reminded because it's easy to forget all that.
Yeah, if people don't know, they just don't know. It's not their fault.
Not their fault, of course.
So let people know, celebrate it.
Yeah. You know, you feel good if you're showing up to a place and you think, I'm walking through the door that all these famous movie stars and directors walk through. Of course, that's part of the, you know, the aura of cinema, the magic. You want to feel close to the kind of dream world of cinema. So
in the Dominion Cinema, they've got pictures up of premieres and things they've had in there, and lots of great movie stars in there.
Yeah.
It's magic.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah.
That's our top cinema. You a fan?
I am now. Do you know there was a period where they wouldn't show gay movies in there?
Oh, really? No, I didn't know that. No.
But that's all changed. But or rather, I remember they didn't. So that wasn't a great.
No.
Let's say not a great time in their history.
Yeah, no.
But
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, but now it's a good place. I think a really good place. It's just the opposite side of town for me, so I don't really go there. But I would be happy to go there.
It's just, and the Cannyman's pub's down the road that's got a sign up saying no backpackers, no mobile phones, and all that.
Cannyman's was recently voted one of the most friendly pubs in Edinburgh, and I thought, have you actually been in there?
Chance.
It's one of the least friendly
It's
pubs.
horrible. Maybe Bennett's down the road is really nice.
The Cannyman's is for masochists. You go in there and you want to be treated like shit, then go into the Cannyman's.
Yeah, a friend got in touch with me from Helensburgh, and he said he'd been watching Rick Stein going in there on a TV programme, and he's a Rick Stein fan, and Rick Stein said it's the best pub in the world. It's like, oh, let's go. And like, they would not welcome you there. You would not be welcome at all. I don't think you'd like it. So that is a Morningside snobbery, and well, it's more than snobbery, isn't it?
It's even more than Morningside. It's just like that kind of thing. Like, we can't be bothered to dust, so they don't want to keep it. It's filthy in there, it's minging.
There we go. Well, I think we've exceeded our 15 minutes mark.
Slightly.
Thank you very much.
My friend,
It's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
And I'll just slide round and turn off the camera.
We did 36 minutes and 40 seconds.
Oh, there we go. That's ideal. It's never 15 minutes. Not if it's good.